Have you ever stopped yourself from speaking, dressing, creating, or even dreaming just because you were afraid of what people might say? In this video, you will discover why most people live trapped inside invisible prisons built from judgment, criticism, and fear of rejection. You will understand how society silently controls human behavior through approval, why confident people seem untouchable, how overthinking destroys personality, and how to finally detach yourself from the endless need to be accepted by everyone around you. By the end of this video, you will begin to see why freedom starts the moment you stop asking permission to be yourself. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and write in the comments, "I choose freedom over fear." Because the truth is simple. The moment you stop fearing people's opinions, your real life begins. People are terrified of judgment because the human brain was designed to seek belonging. Thousands of years ago, rejection from the tribe could mean death, isolation was dangerous, survival depended on approval. But the modern world transformed this ancient instinct into a psychological prison. Today, many people are not afraid of physical danger. They are afraid of embarrassment, afraid of criticism, afraid of looking strange, afraid of being misunderstood. And because of that fear, millions slowly abandon their real personalities just to fit into temporary social expectations. They silence their opinions to avoid conflict. They hide their talents because they fear mockery. They wear masks to gain acceptance. They become actors inside their own lives. The tragedy is that most people never realize it is happening. They think they are being normal, but in reality, they are slowly disconnecting from who they truly are. Fear of judgment is subtle. It does not always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It whispers before you post something online. It whispers before you start a business. It whispers before you approach someone you admire. It whispers before you say what you genuinely think. And over time, those whispers become chains. The dangerous part is that people's opinions constantly change. The same society that criticizes you today may applaud you tomorrow. History proves this repeatedly. Many successful people were once mocked, rejected, or ignored before becoming admired. The world often laughs at originality before celebrating it. But weak minds seek immediate approval, while strong minds understand that greatness usually begins with misunderstanding. If you constantly need everyone to agree with you, you will never become exceptional. You will become predictable, safe, controlled. The fear of opinions also creates emotional exhaustion. Imagine spending your entire life calculating every word, every action, every appearance, every decision according to what others might think. That is not living. That is psychological slavery. Many people who raza passively wake up anxious because they are performing for an audience that is not even paying attention to them as much as they imagine. Most people are too busy worrying about themselves to obsess over your life. Yet insecure minds act as if the whole world is constantly watching them. This is why freedom begins with detachment. Not arrogance, not disrespect. Detachment. There is a difference. A detached person does not hate people's opinions. They simply stop worshiping them. They understand that criticism is unavoidable. No matter what you do, someone will misunderstand you, dislike you, or judge you unfairly. You can be kind and still be hated. You can be honest and still be attacked. You can succeed and still be criticized. Trying to escape judgment completely is impossible. The only real solution is becoming mentally strong enough to continue anyway. The strongest people are not fearless because life is easy for them. They are fearless because they stop to veto for define their identity. They no longer ask the world for permission to exist authentically. Think about how much power you give away every time you let someone's opinion control your emotions. One negative comment ruins your confidence. One rejection destroys your motivation. One criticism changes your direction. That means your emotional state is no longer yours. It belongs to whoever influences you most, and that is dangerous. A person who cannot tolerate judgment becomes easy to manipulate. Society rewards conformity because conformity is easier to control. When people fear standing out, they follow trends blindly. They imitate personalities. They repeat popular opinions without thinking deeply. They become copies of copies. But individuals who stop fearing judgment become unpredictable. They start questioning everything. They stop living automatically. They begin creating their own identity intentionally. This transformation does not happen overnight. First, you must accept an uncomfortable truth. Not everyone will like you. Some people will misunderstand your silence as weakness. Others will misunderstand your confidence as arrogance. Some will dislike you simply because you remind them of what they are afraid to become. Human judgment often reflects personal insecurity more than objective truth. Once you understand this, criticism loses some of its emotional power. You also need to understand that external validation is addictive. Social approval gives temporary emotional rewards, likes, compliments, praise, attention. They can become psychological drugs, and just like any addiction, dependence weakens you. The more you rely on validation, the more fragile your confidence becomes. Real confidence is internal. It survives criticism. It survives rejection. It survives silence. A truly strong person does not collapse every time they are not applauded. Many people postpone their real lives, waiting for universal approval that will never come. They wait to wear what they want, to speak how they want, to create what they want, to pursue the career they want, to express the emotions they want. But life keeps moving while fear keeps negotiating. Years pass, regret grows, and eventually, many realize they sacrificed authenticity just to avoid temporary discomfort. One of the biggest illusions in life is believing safety comes from pleasing everyone. In reality, constantly pleasing others slowly destroys self-respect, because every time you betray your authentic self for approval, your mind notices it, your spirit notices it. Deep inside, you begin losing trust in yourself. That is why many people feel empty even when socially accepted. They gained approval but lost identity. The moment you stop obsessing over opinions, something powerful happens. Your energy returns. Your mind becomes clearer. Decisions become easier. You stop performing constantly. You stop explaining yourself endlessly. You stop trying to manage every perception. And for the first time, you begin experiencing psychological freedom. Freedom is not doing whatever you want recklessly. Freedom is living truthfully without being emotionally imprisoned by constant judgment. This does not mean you ignore all feedback. Wise people still learn from constructive criticism, but they no longer confuse criticism with truth. They analyze it calmly instead of emotionally collapsing under it. They understand that opinions are perspectives, not absolute definitions of human worth. There is immense power in remaining centered while others misunderstand you. Most people panic when they lose approval because their identity depends on external acceptance. But once your identity comes from internal values, outside opinions lose their ability to control your direction. And perhaps the hardest part of this journey is realizing that some relationships only survive when you stay small. Some people feel comfortable only when you doubt yourself. When you begin growing, changing, becoming more authentic, they may resist you. Not because you are wrong, but because your freedom challenges their fear. Your courage becomes a mirror reflecting everything they abandon inside themselves. That is why living without fear requires emotional courage. Not physical courage. Emotional courage means tolerating misunderstanding without abandoning yourself. It means speaking honestly even when your voice shakes. It means creating despite criticism. It means continuing despite rejection. It means accepting that authenticity has a price, but self-betrayal costs far more. And once you experience the peace that comes from no longer performing for the world, you will never want to return to the prison of constant approval. So if this message speaks to you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with someone trapped by fear, and write in the comments, "I will no longer live for other people's opinions." Most people never notice the exact moment fear begins controlling their personality. It happens slowly, quietly. A child expresses himself naturally, then gets laughed at. A teenager shares an opinion, then gets rejected. An adult takes a risk, then gets criticized. After enough painful experiences, the mind starts building defensive walls. It learns to hide, to shrink, to calculate every move carefully. Eventually, many people no longer ask themselves, "What do I truly want?" Instead, they ask, "What will make people accept me?" And that single shift changes the entire direction of a human life. The world teaches conformity from an early age. Schools reward obedience more than originality. Social groups punish difference. Online platforms amplify comparison. Everywhere you look, people are subtly trained to seek approval before authenticity. That is why so many individuals feel disconnected from themselves. They have spent years adapting to external expectations until they no longer recognize their real identity. Some people even become successful while secretly feeling empty because the life they built was designed to impress others, not fulfill themselves. There is something deeply exhausting about constantly monitoring yourself through other people's eyes. Imagine living every day as both the actor and the audience. Every word becomes a performance. Every action becomes calculated. Every decision becomes filtered through imagined judgment. Over time, anxiety grows because the mind was never designed to carry that much social pressure continuously. Many people today are not physically tired. They are mentally suffocated by self-consciousness. And social media intensified this problem dramatically. Human beings were never meant to receive opinions from hundreds or thousands of people constantly. One negative comment can outweigh 100 compliments because the brain naturally focuses on threats. This creates emotional instability. A person uploads a photo feeling confident, then suddenly, one criticism destroys their mood for hours or days. Their emotional state becomes dependent on digital reactions. This is not confidence, it is emotional dependency disguised as confidence. Real freedom begins when you realize something shocking. People's opinions are often temporary, emotional reactions, not objective truth. Someone may criticize you simply because they are frustrated with their own life. Someone may mock your ambition because they abandoned theirs long ago. Someone may dislike your confidence because it exposes their insecurity. Human judgment is rarely pure logic. Most opinions are emotional projections wearing the mask of certainty. Once you understand this, fear starts losing its grip. You stop treating every criticism like a life or death emergency. You begin separating your identity from public reaction. This is extremely important because emotionally weak people absorb every opinion they hear. They become psychological sponges. Praise inflates them. Criticism destroys them. Their emotional balance depends entirely on external voices, but mentally strong individuals develop emotional independence. They listen without surrendering themselves completely. There is also a hidden cost to constantly seeking approval. Creativity dies. Fear suffocates originality. Many brilliant ideas never enter the world because someone feared looking foolish. Many talented people remain invisible because they feared being judged. Many dreams collapse before they even begin because someone chose social comfort over personal truth. Fear does not only imprison personalities, it destroys potential. One of the clearest signs that someone fears judgment is over-explaining. They constantly justify their decisions because they need everyone to understand and approve. But mature confidence understands something powerful. You do not owe every person access to your inner world. Not everyone deserves explanations. Not everyone will understand your path. And trying to convince everyone is a battle you will never win. Some people will criticize you no matter what you do. If you stay quiet, they call you weak. If you speak confidently, they call you arrogant. If you pursue success, they call you selfish. If you remain humble, they overlook you. This is why basing your identity on public opinion is dangerous. Public opinion is unstable. It changes constantly, depending on trends, emotions, envy, culture, and insecurity. If your confidence depends on something unstable, your inner peace will always remain fragile. The strongest transformation happens when you stop asking, "How do I avoid criticism?" and start asking, "Why does criticism control me so deeply?" That question changes everything because it forces you to confront the real issue: attachment. Fear of judgment is often attachment to approval, and attachment creates suffering. The more desperately you need acceptance, the more terrified you become of rejection. But rejection itself is not fatal. In fact, rejection is often necessary for growth. Every authentic person eventually experiences misunderstanding. Every independent thinker eventually disappoints someone. Every individual who chooses truth over performance eventually loses certain forms of social approval. That is normal. The problem is that many people interpret rejection as proof of worthlessness instead of proof of individuality. A person who fears judgment constantly edits themselves to remain acceptable, but eventually they become emotionally invisible even to themselves. They suppress opinions, hide emotions, ignore instincts, pretend agreement, laugh when they do not want to laugh, stay silent when they want to speak. Slowly, authenticity disappears. And without authenticity, confidence becomes impossible because confidence can only exist when you fully accept who you are. Deep confidence is not loud. It does not need constant attention. It does not obsess over being liked by everyone. Real confidence is quiet emotional stability. It is the ability to remain yourself under pressure. It is the ability to tolerate disapproval without collapsing mentally. It is the strength to continue your path even when others doubt you. The truth is that fear of people's opinions steals time more than anything else. Years disappear while individuals hesitate. Opportunities vanish while they overthink. Relationships fail because they fear honesty. Dreams die because they fear embarrassment. And the tragedy is that eventually everyone realizes something important. Most of the people whose opinions controlled them were too busy living their own lives to care as much as they imagined. That realization can feel painful at first, but it is also liberating, because if people are not thinking about you nearly as much as you fear, then you are finally free to live more honestly, free to experiment, free to fail, free to grow, free to change, free to become. And perhaps the most powerful moment in this journey comes when you stop needing applause to continue, when silence no longer discourages you, when criticism no longer defines you, when rejection no longer destroys your direction. That is when emotional maturity begins, because mature people understand that self-worth cannot permanently depend on unstable external reactions. If you continue living according to other people's expectations, eventually you will wake up inside a life that no longer feels like yours. That is why courage matters. Not the dramatic courage seen in movies, but the quiet, daily courage to be authentic in a world addicted to performance. The courage to speak honestly, to create fearlessly, to walk away from toxic approval, to stop shrinking yourself just to make insecure people comfortable. And once you taste the peace that comes from emotional freedom, you begin realizing that the greatest prison was never society itself. It was the fear you carried inside your own mind. Fear has a strange way of disguising itself as responsibility. Many people say, "I just care what others think because I want to be respectful." But often, that is not respect. It is fear wearing polite clothes. Real respect does not require self-erasure. You can care about others without abandoning yourself completely. The problem begins when your entire identity becomes dependent on external acceptance. At that point, you are no longer living consciously. You are reacting psychologically. Some individuals become so addicted to approval that they cannot make simple decisions alone anymore. They ask everyone for validation before taking action. They fear choosing the wrong path because they fear being judged for failure. But this creates paralysis. Overthinking grows. Confidence weakens. Action disappears. And life rewards action far more than endless hesitation. The irony is that many people who judge others harshly are themselves deeply insecure. Confident individuals usually do not obsess over controlling how strangers live. People who constantly criticize often do so because they feel powerless in their own lives. Judging others temporarily, staying, gives them a sense of superiority. Once you understand this psychological pattern, criticism becomes less intimidating. You stop seeing every negative opinion as wisdom. Sometimes criticism reveals more about the critic than the person being criticized. This does not mean you become emotionally cold or disconnected from humanity. It means you become selective about whose voice deserves influence over your life. Not every opinion deserves equal emotional weight. Advice from someone wise, experienced, and sincere is valuable. Random negativity from insecure people is not. One of the most important skills in life is learning the difference. Many people suffer because they give strangers access to deeply personal emotional spaces. A comment from someone who barely knows them ruins their confidence. An online opinion changes their entire mood. This happens because they never built internal emotional authority. Their self-image depends on external reactions, but when your identity becomes internally grounded, you stop emotionally collapsing every time someone misunderstands you. One powerful shift happens when you stop trying to manage everyone's perception of you. That obsession is exhausting because it never ends. No matter how carefully you behave, someone will still interpret you incorrectly. Human beings see the world through personal filters, shaped by trauma, insecurity, envy, ego, culture, and emotion. Two people can observe the exact same person and form completely opposite opinions. That alone proves something important. Perception is subjective, so destroying yourself trying to control perception is a losing battle. Some people are trapped not because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity, but because they fear visibility. They fear being seen trying. They fear looking imperfect during growth. They want mastery without awkward beginnings. But every powerful person once looked inexperienced. Every skilled creator once looked amateur. Every confident speaker once sounded nervous. Growth always includes temporary discomfort. Fear convinces people to avoid that discomfort, but avoidance slowly destroys potential. You must also recognize how dangerous comparison can become. Constantly comparing yourself to others intensifies fear because comparison creates insecurity. Social media especially encourages people to measure their worth against carefully edited versions of strangers' lives. People compare their real struggles to someone else's highlights. Then they feel inadequate. Then fear increases. Then authenticity decreases. This cycle quietly damages mental health. The real freedom requires breaking this cycle intentionally. You have to stop measuring your value through public reaction. Some of the most important growth in your life may happen silently, without applause, without recognition, without validation. Mature individuals continue improving even when nobody notices because their motivation no longer depends entirely on external reward. There's a reason deeply authentic people often appear calm. They're not calm because life is perfect. They're calm because they stopped fighting to control everyone's opinion. They accepted a truth most people resist. Misunderstanding is part of life. Once you stop demanding universal approval, emotional tension decreases dramatically. You also become harder to manipulate. Society influences people largely through fear of exclusion. Fear keeps people silent. Fear keeps people obedient. Fear keeps people pretending. But once someone becomes emotionally independent, manipulation weakens. That person starts asking dangerous questions. Do I actually believe this? Am I living honestly? Who would I become if I stopped fearing judgment? Those questions can completely transform a human life. The path toward emotional freedom is uncomfortable because it requires confronting hidden insecurity. You begin noticing how often your behavior was motivated by fear instead of truth. You notice how many times you stayed silent to avoid rejection, how many opportunities you abandoned because you feared embarrassment, how many versions of yourself never fully emerged because you prioritized acceptance over authenticity. That realization hurts, but it also awakens something powerful inside you. Responsibility, because once you become aware of the prison, you can no longer pretend the door is locked. Many people wait their entire lives hoping fear will disappear before they act confidently. But confidence is not the absence of fear. Confidence is acting despite fear. Courage grows through repetition. Every time you speak honestly despite anxiety, you become stronger. Every time you express yourself authentically despite judgment, fear loses power. Every time you stop abandoning yourself for approval, self-respect grows, and self-respect changes everything. A person with self-respect no longer begs for validation everywhere they go. They stop chasing acceptance from people who do not value them. They stop shrinking themselves socially. They stop apologizing for existing authentically. They understand that peace is more valuable than forced approval. One of the saddest realities in life is that some people only discover their true personality after years of pretending. They spent so long adapting to expectations that they forgot who they were beneath the performance. That is why solitude can become powerful. Silence reveals identity. When external noise disappears, you finally hear your own thoughts clearly. You begin asking yourself difficult questions. What do you genuinely believe? What do you truly want? Which parts of your personality are authentic and which parts were built for survival? Those questions are uncomfortable but necessary because a life built entirely around pleasing others eventually becomes emotionally unbearable. No amount of approval can replace inner alignment. People may admire the mask while the real person underneath slowly feels empty. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: your life belongs to you. not to the endless opinions surrounding you. One day your time will run out, and when that day arrives, the approval you spent years chasing will mean almost nothing compared to the opportunities you avoided, the truth you suppressed, and the person you were too afraid to become. That is why emotional freedom matters now, not someday, because every moment spent imprisoned by fear is a moment stolen from your real life. And maybe that is the real reason so many people remain trapped for years, not because they are weak, not because they are incapable, but because they never realized how much of their life was being controlled by invisible fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of looking foolish, fear of disappointing people. Yet the moment you begin questioning those fears, the walls around your mind slowly begin to crack. You start understanding that living authentically will always offend certain people. Some individuals only feel comfortable when everyone behaves predictably. Your independence unsettles them. Your confidence threatens them. Your refusal to seek approval confuses them. But none of that means you are wrong. Sometimes growth looks dangerous to people who chose comfort over truth. And as you continue this journey, something unexpected happens. You stop wasting energy proving yourself constantly. You stop chasing validation from emotionally unavailable people. You stop over-explaining every decision. You stop shrinking your personality just to remain acceptable. Little by little, peace replaces anxiety. Clarity replaces confusion. Strength replaces insecurity. Because true freedom is not becoming fearless overnight. True freedom is reaching a point where fear no longer controls your choices. It is the ability to move forward even while uncertainty exists. It is the decision to remain authentic even when misunderstood. It is waking up one day and realizing you would rather be disliked for who you truly are than loved for a performance that slowly destroys your soul. And perhaps the most beautiful part of emotional freedom is this. Once you stop obsessing over other people's opinions, you finally have enough mental space to build your real life. Your creativity returns, your confidence grows naturally, your thoughts become clearer, your energy stops leaking into endless overthinking. Instead of surviving psychologically, you finally begin living consciously. So if you have spent years hiding your voice, doubting yourself, or shaping your life around fear, let this be the root of your mindset right now. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Because life moves quickly, and the greatest tragedy is not failure. The greatest tragedy is reaching the end of your life, realizing you never truly allowed yourself to exist fully. If this video spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with someone who needs this message today. And in the comments, write, "I choose my own path." Because the moment you stop living for other people's approval, you finally begin living for yourself.